Given your understanding of the passage, which of the following would you agree with? Option A says, the internet has given a new direction to communication. Now, it is very easy to opt for this option, which makes this a rather tough question because it is not in itself tough, but it's very deceptive. This seems to be correct, but if you look at the only reference to the internet, we find it in the end of the third paragraph. It says here, this history, on the other hand, will restrict itself to the communication of information and ideas in words and images by means of speech, writing, print, radio, television, and most recently by the internet. So we see that the internet, as mentioned here, has been presented as a means of communication. The communication of whatever and whatever by means of the internet. So communication by means of the internet. It does not in any way directly state that the internet has given a new direction to communication. Now, internet has given a new direction to communication is absolutely true, but that is not supported by the passage. That is outside information. And we cannot bring outside information here. Contrast this with radio and television, which we see here at the beginning of the fourth paragraph. Significantly, it was in the age of radio that scholars began to recognize the importance of oral communication. And in ancient Greece and in the Middle Ages, the beginning of the television age in the 1950s brought in visual communication as well and stimulated the rise of an interdisciplinary theory of the media, contributions from various fields, etc. So we see that new directions to communication is stated about the age of radio, about the television age, but about internet, not directly mentioned. So this might be true, but it is deceptive because this is not something which is directly supported by the passage, not even inferential, not necessarily. It's a probable scenario at best. So not a very good option. Let's see if we can find a better option. B says, a highlight of bygone ages can be said to be the concern with means of communication by scholars. Now, this again seems to be outside the premise because highlight of bygone ages, concern by scholars, what exactly are we talking about? But we are talking about these things inferentially speaking. One reference we have already seen. This is at the beginning of the fourth paragraph. Significantly, it was in the age of radio that scholars began to recognize the importance of oral communication in ancient Greece and in the Middle Ages. So the importance of oral communication in ancient Greece and the Middle Ages refers to a concern with the means of communication, at least with oral communication in bygone ages. So that is a highlight of bygone ages. We also see at the end that there are mentions of a lot of striking phrases by different experts and what phrases, what ideas they bring in here. The second reference, rather that would be the first reference, is here in the first paragraph. In the 1950s of a communication revolution, we're talking about people talking about the media in the 1920s and a generation later in the 1950s of a communication revolution. But a concern with the means of communication is very much older than that. Rhetoric, the study of the art of oral and written communication, was taken very seriously in ancient Greece and Rome. It was studied in the Middle Ages and with greater enthusiasm in the Renaissance. So that said, Middle Ages, ancient Greece and Rome, Renaissance, during all these periods, we find that there was an importance given to, there was a great importance given to the art of oral and written communication, which here is defined as rhetoric, the study of the art of oral and written communication. So a highlight of these bygone ages definitely can be said to be the concern with means of communication by scholars. Absolutely true. So we find that this is a much more direct reference, a much more valid reference, something that the passage supports as compared to that. A is quite inferior. A is something that is very true, but not directly supported by the passage. So B can be qualified, and now by comparison, we can eliminate A. Option C tells us scholarly interest in communication has resulted in the birth of a new discipline. This is a reference to the last paragraph. We see it here. Contributions were made from economics, history, literature, art, political science, psychology, sociology, and anthropology, and led to the emergence of academic departments of communication and cultural studies. Striking phrases encapsulating new ideas were coined by. That said, the scholarly interest in communication, which is basically academic departments of communication and cultural studies, that has not resulted in the birth of a new discipline. Say, for example, the beginning of the television age has resulted in the birth of a new discipline, which is an interdisciplinary theory of the media. That said, this just talks about the formal study of communication. It doesn't talk about a new discipline. So scholarly interest, new discipline, not necessarily. Again, we talk about scholarly interest here in these lines. Scholars such as Harold Innis, Marshall McLuhan, Jürgen Habermas, etc. Others mentioned previously. We have Claude Levi-Strauss and Niklas Luhmann. But that said, this is only talking about striking phrases. We're talking about the extension of the concept of communication to a wider definition. That's it. None of these is talking about a birth of a new discipline. So this is an exaggeration. This is an exaggerated statement. We cannot consider this to be true. B, in any case, is much more direct and much more qualifiable from the passage. Let us call it that. So C is incorrect. Option D says, denunciation of media has a pattern evolving with emergence of television and internet. Forget everything else. Denunciation of media has a pattern evolving with completely outside the premise. The passage is talking about media being important. The passage is talking about people beginning to speak of media and a concern with communication, a concern with speaking of a communication revolution. Media, the proliferation of media, that is the key aspect of of the passage. Option D talks about the denunciation of media, rejection of media. So this is something that cannot be supported by the passage at all. The passage is quite contradictory to this. The passage is talking about proliferation, about expansion of the use of media, and D is talking about its rejection. Such an idea, a rejection of media, has not been presented in the passage at all. So D is completely incorrect. The most appropriate answer is option B.